welcome to ACC's Gentle Yoga at Noon. I'm Jeani, your guide for the next hour. We are here practicing, working on our warm-ups at the beginning of class, a walking meditation that's a modified version of the sun salutations. And then we will be using some balancing poses as well as cooling down poses as we make our way down to the mat. However, we are also using a chair if you're in the transition from that state where maybe some of the chair positions will have your hips a little higher than usual. Hi. And you know, just in that transition as you're making your way down to the mat, maybe you can use blocks or a bolster to meet the distance if you have to sit down, or use the blocks to make that distance if you have to reach for the floor. So anyhow, if you're good with the mat, we'll go ahead and just start at the back of the mat as we usually do. And when you're arriving, I'd like you to remember you don't have to change the quality of your breath. You're just arriving, noticing how the mat feels under the feet, how the legs, if they're a little on the tighter side, just keep a gentle bend to the knees. But think about just a gentle mountain as you begin your practice. Just check in on the breath. Gently scanning through the body. And then we'll begin cultivating our breath. So in our mountain, let's go ahead and bring our left palm to rest on our chest, right palm underneath the belly button, and continue breathing for the next couple of breath cycles. The inhale, a brief pause before you start the exhale, another brief pause before the cycle begins again. And all the breath is moving through the nose. With each inhale, you may feel at the top of the inhale, the shoulders lifting towards the ceiling, chest expanding up and out, sideways. And on that slower, more controlled exhale, slowly press out the air with that belly hand. Engage the core fully. Feel that connection at the soles of the feet to the mat. And we'll finish cultivating our breath with the sound of the ocean at the back of the throat. And with that connection to our yogic breath, we'll go ahead and place our hands at our sides, nice and relaxed. Feel the mat under the feet once more. You can reset the mountain if you'd like. But with the next breath, just gently press down into the legs, into the feet. Feel that energy drawing upwards, up through the body, to the crown of the head, maybe even beyond. And on the slow exhale, that energy reversing back down the body, through the legs, to the mat, and to the earth. With the next inhale, engaging the core slightly, we're slowly breathing towards the toes. Feel that center of gravity to that edge at the toes, and then use the next breath. Slowly feel the center of gravity moving towards the heels until you have that tipping point, just slightly. Then use the next breath or two to get that heel to toe alignment. And we'll meet at center, somewhere above the arches, near to the heels. Notice how the mountain feels. You can readjust as you go along, but feet should be underneath our hips, right under the hip bones there. And we'll inhale, feel a little longer. And as we feel that energy lifting up through the crown of the head, like a string pulling us up here at the crown, we'll go ahead and exhale. Slowly roll the weight towards the outer right edge of your feet. Fully exhaled at the edge, let's go ahead and inhale all the way back up. And exhale to the other side. Try to keep the legs as long as you can and just find that movement by rolling at the soles of the feet in that 3-part breath. You can also do a 2-part breath if that's easier. Just breathe from side to side, keeping both of the feet on the mat, just rolling to the edge. We'll go ahead and meet at center, somewhere above the arches, sinking into our mountain, lengthening, getting a little longer, a little stronger in each return to our mountain. Let's go ahead and feel that energy upwards towards the crown of the head once more, and we're going to start to make small circles at the ankles, and feel those small circles getting a little larger, wider, until it finally reaches the edge of your feet. Once you find that perimeter, we'll tighten in the circles, and then meet back at center, dropping into our mountain, resetting once more if you need. Feeling that upwards energy at the crown of the head. Start making small circles in the opposite direction, but once more at the ankles, radiating outward towards the perimeter. It might be different, this path. It might be a little choppier. Just notice how it feels. Once you identify that edge, we'll go ahead and tighten in the circles, come right back in, feeling that center, hopefully right above the arches. You can always bend the knees, gently bounce a little bit, roll on from heel to toes, just to reset. You can even lift your feet if you need to, if you have a tendency to grip your mat. With the next exercise, warm-up here, we're just going to start moving a little more, shifting our weight from side to side. And you can widen the stance of the feet. Typically, you might find the toes moving out a little bit more. And as you have a torso kind of twisting, maybe just a second or two in delay from the bottom part of the body, you might find a sort of twisting action that's led by the torso moving and the feet, the toes lifting up as you turn that torso to that side, and the heel gently pivoting on the heel as you move from side to side. And then we'll let that energy peter down. Some days you might have a lot of energy and you might even have the arms just tapping front and back, but then you let that peter out and we'll come back to center. And hopefully you felt a little gentle movement in the ankles, in the hips, shoulders, waist, maybe even a little in the knees. And we'll go ahead and reset our mountain once more. Make sure the heels and toes are pointing in the same direction, somewhat underneath our hips. And we'll go ahead and as we're standing now, feel that pressing down of the feet, internal rotation of the thighs, so you can feel your legs almost becoming one long trunk. And as you're moving up, you can even maybe gently tuck under the tailbone. If you had your tailbone sticking out and a pelvic tilt at the front, let's see if we can tuck under and just pressing down on those legs. Feel as if you've got a little more of that square foot right at the base. And we'll move up to the shoulders now, engaging your core slightly, feeling rooted down all the way from the hips down to the heels. Let's go ahead, palms facing forward. Inhale, shoulders lift up towards the ceiling. At the top, we'll go ahead and let them roll back, exhaling, and let them melt down fully. By the end of that exhale, engage the core. We're doing a total of 4 breath cycles here, lifting up on the inhale, rolling back and down on the exhale, and engage the core slightly if you tend to lose that in the transition. You should feel a nice column of support from the hips down to the heels. As we get to our very last exhale here, see if you can really breathe in and exhale out that very last breath. And then we'll do another set. Inhaling up, this time roll them forward on the exhale. Another 4 breath cycles, just getting shoulder movement on the forward roll this time. Still finding that length with each inhale. I think I need one more for that 4th. Then we'll go ahead and relax the shoulders. Go ahead and reset the mountain if you need to. See if you've actively held on to any of those muscles. You can release them. Coming back to our mountain once more. We'll move on up to the neck and the head, giving ourselves that gentle pressing down, lengthening, if you will, all the way from the heels, all the way up to the shoulders that we just stretched out a bit here. We'll go ahead and feel that crown of the head lifting like a string, pulling it up. Gentle tuck of the chin. And as we're inhaling completely at the top, let's go ahead and exhale. Let the right ear dip towards the right shoulder. About a tennis ball space, still there. Inhaling, finding length. Exhaling, turning the gaze. And here, give yourself a total of 3 more breath cycles. See if you can release through the left side of the neck, even all the way through the eyes, if you can imagine. So that maybe by the end of your last breath cycle, the exhale, find your eyes resting somewhere behind your right shoulder or in front of it. It doesn't matter, but as much to the right of your periphery as possible. Then we can inhale, the eyes, the gaze, the top of the head lifts towards the ceiling. So all we have to do is dip the left ear towards the left shoulder. Both shoulders are still in line. As we inhale for length, at the sternum, you should feel a little lifting. At the exhale, turn the gaze if you haven't already. Wherever your eyes first land, that's where you stop. And maybe by the time you're done with your 4th exhale, breath cycle exhale, you might find your eyes resting at the leftmost of your periphery. Remember breathing in to the right side of your neck and keeping those shoulders in line, the hips in line, the ankles in line. Balance to the column of support from the shoulders down. After the last exhale, go ahead and bring the eyes, the gaze, the crown of the head lifting all the way up. So all you have to do is lower the eyes. Gentle gaze lowers until it lands at the top of the mat, 6 feet in front of you about. Have that nice long back of the neck and still some space between the chin and the chest. As we inhale, a slight diagonal tilt upwards of the crown of the head. The exhale, still feeling that good solid column of support from the heels all the way to the base neckline. See if your hands are forward facing. That'll help if the shoulders are starting to turn inward. We want to have them nice and open. After the last breath, let's go ahead and inhale the eyes back to the midline, past the midline. And then when you can see somewhat above you, stop craning the neck and just give yourself the next 4 breath cycles here to release at the front of the throat, in the mouth. You can always have a small O, opening of the mouth, getting a little bigger, larger O. Maybe just a gentle swaying of the jaw. And if you sigh deeply, you've just engaged your relaxed nervous system. All right, we'll go ahead and exhale. Bring the eyes back down to the center line. And again, shake out any residual activation of muscles that kept that position. And we'll go ahead and start with our folds to begin our walking meditation. So in our longer, taller, stronger mountain, let's go ahead and reach downward with our fingertips, extending the arms. We inhale, extended arms upwards, and at the very top, you might even lift up with the chest. Breathe in and press down through the feet. And exhale next, slowly hinging at the hips. And you can bend your knees. You can start to stick the tailbone down, back and out. And as you come on down, maybe halfway down, you can rest your arms if you're feeling strain. But you can walk your hands down. You're coming into your first fold. And if you've got tight hips, tight back, you might be somewhere up here with your hands on your thighs. That's okay. You might just be working your way down. As you move through that halfway point, you want to make sure you're internally rotating at the thighs, pressing into the balls of the feet, sticking the tailbone out so you can bring the chest a little closer towards the thighs. And you'll get a little closer to your fold, perhaps to the blocks that are near you. Maybe your hands now will go from the thighs to the ankles, maybe even to the floor. Maybe you've got palms on the floor. Wherever you are, your column of support from the hips down to the heels, that's nice and solid, engaged core. And you're just thinking about lengthening from the tailbone, down the spine, the neck, and even the crown of the head. See if you're holding onto your head.
And keep a bend to the knees if you feel like it's getting kind of tight here. You can always do that. Just shift the weight a little back further towards your heels. But you're here just seeing if you can gently bobble the head left to right, forward and back, maybe even in a dangling plumb line circle. And those deep yogic breaths. It's usually about 5 breath cycles here in our first ragdoll of a forward fold. So being careful coming up, we're going to engage the core. We're going to walk our hands, slowly rolling up one vertebra at a time with a deep breath, pressing into the feet, engaging the core. Pressing, engaging the thighs, walking the hands all the way back up. And the last thing that stacks on the neck should be the head as the shoulders open up, palms facing forward, and once more, tucking under the tailbone, pressing down into your legs, lifting up through the torso, long. Just allowing the breath and the blood to rush back to the head. We'll go ahead and fold one more time. Reaching downward. Inhale, extended arms upwards. At the top, lift up if you can. Exhale, engage the core, bend the knees, stick the tailbone back, and hinge at the hips to fold. You can always walk the hands down or float on down. And we're thinking about internal rotation of the thighs so you can stick the tailbone back and provide some room for your fold. And as you come to your second fold, we're only here for about 3 breath cycles. So maybe you can bend one knee, alternately lengthen, bend the other leg, knee, lengthen. See if a gentle side-to-side movement at the hips helps to release some of the tightness there. And always keeping that bend so you can keep this shape and form comfortably. But here in our second fold, we're going to come on out. Again, you can do a slow roll up, engaging the core on the inhale, pressing into the feet, or you can come up with a straight back, but either way, engaging the core. So inhaling, rolling up or coming up with a straight back, coming all the way upwards and feeling those legs extend, lifting up the torso, reaching all the way up, hands down, heart center, and we'll begin our walking meditation. So here, start to bring standing weight to your left side, left leg, left center is right there over the left leg. And you can lift the right heel now, completely lift the palm, the sole if you can, and then on the inhale, and then on the exhale, we're putting the heel, ball of foot, and toes down. And once you get that balance back there on that right leg, we're going to inhale the left foot up, and you might have it up higher this time. You might just have it just off the mat, hovering, but set it down, middle of the foot or the heel, ball of foot and toes. Fully exhaled there, we lift up the other foot, and it's okay if you fall out. Just come on back, pressing into the palms, engaging your core. Maintaining that engagement of the core helps to keep your balance. And it's a slow walking meditation, 1 breath cycle per step, keeping the core engaged. And we can meet at the top of the mat in mountain, looking down at the fingertips, pressing into the palms. Inhale, watch the fingertips rise. And at the top, go ahead and separate the hands. And once more, we're hinging at the hips, engaging the core, pressing back with our tailbone and folding forward. Walking the hands down if you need, using your blocks, whatever you need to come on down to your third fold this time. Now, we're going to inhale wherever you have contact. Maybe it's your thighs, maybe it's the shins, maybe it's your blocks. We just want to lengthen as much as we can from the tailbone to the crown of the head. Might not be a 90-degree angle, might be more of just lengthening at the back where you can, keeping that support. But you want to feel that good length in the legs as best that you can. We're coming up to that half lift, fully inhaled here. And then we exhale back towards the fold. And you can bend the knees if you need. We're going to start to bring the hands either to the blocks or down to either side of the feet at the mat. And we start to walk the foot down. Bending the knees deeply if we need. We just bring the legs back to the back of the mat. Inhaling, we lengthen through the legs. Shoulders go over the wrists. And then we bring the shins down and the tops of the feet if you can, just to support the bottom of the body. And in this modified high plank, what we're looking for is length through the arms. Your shoulders are nice and strong. They're moving. Feel that energy of the elbows, the shoulders down to the wrists. And if it's a little too hard on the wrists, you can always lift up the knees back, inch back a little bit, and make it a little less of a 90-degree angle at the wrists. But you want to feel the tops of the ankles or the toes, if tops of the ankles are kind of tight for you. But the shins should be primarily getting the bottom of the weight there. Now with the next inhale, we're going to tuck the toes, lift up the knees, and lengthen, and then press the hips back towards our dog. That should bring the head somewhere around the shoulders, and you can make your adjustment at this point. You might have tight back of the legs so that you're high up on the balls of your feet, and you can slowly lower the heels as is available to you. It doesn't have to meet the mat. You might need to move the distance between the feet and the hands. We're trying for an upside down V, but we might have more of a U, and that's okay. Just work on it the best that you can. Think about energy moving down from the tailbone to the heels, from the tailbone down the back to the arms, and at the hips, at the tailbone, we're just lifting up towards the sky. So 3 different points of energy. Now with the next inhale, roll the eyes towards the hands. Keep a deep bend to the knees if you need. We're going to walk our hands, engaging the core. Walk the hands to the back of the mat. Back to the fold. Deep bend to the knees if you need. And then lengthen for a half lift. Exhale, fold. And then inhale. Use that slow roll up once more, or engage the core, pressing into the feet, engaging everything in the thighs to the glutes and the belly. You can come all the way back up with an inhale and a straight back as well. And at the top, we reach all the way up, lengthening, pressing the tailbone forward, and exhaling hands down heart center. And here we'll go for a second walking meditation. Inhaling, standing weight to the left side of the body, lifting up the right sole of the foot. Inhale. Exhale the heel or the middle of the foot. Ball of foot, toes down. Fully exhaled here. Get that balance. Inhale, left foot up. Exhale it down. Pressing into the palms, engaging your core really helps to keep your balance as you move one step forward with each breath cycle. And at the top of the mat, we meet once more in mountain, looking down at the fingertips, press into the palms, inhale the arms up, fully open the hands, exhale here, stick the tailbone back, start to bend the knees if you need, and hinging at the hips, we come on down. Engaged core is important. Walk the hands down if you need. Coming down to our 4th fold now, I believe. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, back to the fold, wherever you're comfortable. And we're going to keep our hands on either side of our feet or on blocks. And we're going to walk the feet back. Walk them all the way back to the mat into a high plank this time. We're inhaling nice and long legs. And feel that energy from the shoulders down to the wrists and from the heels down to the balls of the feet. Engaged core, that means the belly button is sticking to the spine. And then we'll inhale, lift up the hips. Exhale, bring the hips back into down dog. And I think my microphone... All right, I think it's okay. Inhale. And here, we're only in our dog for about 3 breath cycles. So you can walk your dog. You can play with tiptoe, lengthening on the inhale. And exhale, releasing those heels slowly down towards the mat. And if they don't meet, that's okay. Just finding that length best that you can, keeping a bend to the knees if you need. With the next inhale, let's roll our eyes towards the hands. Bend the knees deeply if you need, but we're walking the hands once more to the back of the mat, to the back, at the fold. Fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, engage the core. And come on up, your choice. Inhaling deeply, core engaged, hands all the way back up.
Exhaling, hands down, heart center, and finally down to the side. Just give yourself a moment to have the blood rush back to the head. And you should feel a little warmer. Maybe the joints are a little bit more lubricated for yourself. And we're going to come into a balance pose next. And here we go. Yeah. It's a good time for some water. You can use a strap. What we're doing here is just trying to balance on one foot, just like we did when we were going through the walking meditation. And you can do a number of things to kind of find that balance. You can challenge yourself a little more even. But for our first balance here, we're going to come into our square foot mountain as we usually typically do. Reset your mountain once more. See how the legs are feeling. See if you've got a good tuck under of the tailbone. You've got that stacking of knees over the ankles, hips over the knees. And hopefully you can find that lifting up of the torso, sinking it in so that the shoulders now hopefully are above the hips. And then we'll bring the chin gently back, and maybe the ears can be over the shoulders at this point. Feel that nice long length, as if a string is pulling you up at the crown of the head, and you're actually pressing down on all points of your feet, the soles of the feet. And once that's there, we'll go ahead. You can, I did mention a strap, so I might as well demonstrate with one. You can think about slowly bringing weight to one foot, and we'll start with the left side. And as you're bringing more weight to that side, and either you can have the block, you can have a strap, but as you're bringing more weight to the left side of the body, standing weight to that left side, hopefully you should find that center of gravity that was here in our square foot, just slightly shifting over to this side. It should be enough so that you can engage everything from the glute down to the calf of that left leg, and feel like you've got a good standing there, enough to be able to lift the right heel. And then if you're good there, you can think about just lifting, hovering the sole of the foot, maybe an inch off of the mat. And if you can do that, then you can play around with that. If you tap out, that's all right. You can use the strap to kind of help you. As you're bringing that standing weight to this leg, what we're doing is firing up those muscles that are really going to help us stabilize everything from the hip, knee, down to the ankle. So we can get that standing weight and bring that left foot up. We don't want to hyperextend that knee though, so make sure you're stacking that and you've got a comfortable stacking, where you can just lift the left heel and then the sole of the foot even. You may not even have a bend to the hip. You can use the strap right underneath the ball of that foot you're trying to lift up. That can help as well, if you're able to just have it sort of help you up. And you'll be playing with this left side. Now that's a long time activating, so we're going to bring this right foot down and release the left side. Hopefully you're feeling the release from the left glute as well. And you can gently roll the ankle, gently bend the knee. You can lift that foot if you can bring some standing weight to that other side. And just kick it forward a little bit. And then step out to the out. Same side, just stepping out. And then gently see if you can bring it over towards the right, crossing that midline. And that just hopefully releases whatever was tight here for a while. And then we'll go ahead and come back to our stance one more time, our 1 square foot stance, hips, feet underneath the hips, lengthening. We'll do the same thing to the opposite leg. So if you're using the strap, go ahead and get it ready soon, right at the ball of the foot. But you're starting with that weight on the right side. Feel that nice stacking. And then as you're able to bring the standing weight there, you should find that bringing the left heel up is easy. If that's good for you there, and you've got that stability there, you can start by lifting up the strap. You can use 2 hands. You could just hover it, because just hovering it above the mat is challenging. You're in that 1 foot balance, and you're really hopefully firing up the side. And you can always tap down there. Give yourself, I don't know, see if you can stand 5 seconds, 2 seconds, and tap down the other leg, rest. Do that a few times, and then we'll come back to our standing in our home base. You'll want to release any still activated muscles, so you can do a bend in the knee, you can gently roll at the ankle, you can, if you find standing balance weight on the left side now again, you can kick forward, kick out to the side, and then gently come over to the midline. And I have really super tight here, so I'm not doing much movement, but you can feel that. It's up, you know, get to know your range of mobility, but as we're releasing from each hold, that's just a nice counter stretch. Now, another way to stabilize your standing leg is to also, it's kind of like how we started tree in some of our classes. We would start at a block, stepping onto a block, and just feeling that stepping sensation to lengthen. We're stabilizing our muscles. These are the muscle points that we're trying to stabilize and activate. And so what happens is the right foot, hopefully you can start to, if you've got the stabilize and firing, should be able to just bring that right foot up and hold. And that's something you can use as a more challenging version of stabilizing that standing balance weight on one side. And as you calm down, of course, we're bringing the other foot down so we can bend the standing weight leg. And then we can switch to the other side. Now, you don't have to do that. You could just stay on the floor and just imagine that activation of the glutes, the quads, hamstrings, all those, stabilizing muscles on the side as well, the IT band. So, coming here, I'll just go ahead and go onto the block, but you can use the floor if you'd like, but just standing, getting that feeling of firing off those muscles to lengthen through that leg. You'll feel it from the glute all the way down, not hyperextending the knee, but just keeping that nice and stacked. Everything on one side stacked, and then once you can find that stacking, then you would start to lift up on the heel, see if the sole of the foot can be just lifted at some point. Hovering barely a fraction of space above the mat is a great test. This is just more challenging. So as you come off the block, you'll bring that non-block foot down, bending the right knee, removing the right foot from the block. All right. Now those are all things, hopefully you're still feeling a little engagement in the glutes and the quads. So give yourself any movement that might hopefully release. You never know. And it's just good as you move to the next pose to kind of get that out. So here is where we're going to use the chair now. We're going to move into a staff position, coming on down so that we can just gently walk our torso down our staff legs. So if you're down on the mat, go ahead and meet in staff if that's available to you. But if you are using a chair as you're transitioning down to the floor, what you're going to do is I'll use a side profile so you can see what you want, where you would need the sits bones, and how the legs will kind of be standing or out in front of you. Hello. So again, you want to stabilize your chair. Make sure you're not going to slip, whichever chair that you're using. If you're on the mat, though, just sit upright. And you're getting to that point where we just want that 90-degree angle at the hips. And if you're in a chair, we're just going to find that edge, feel that stability first. If you're on the mat, it's the same thing. And then we lengthen through the legs. We might have tented knees if we're down on the mat. Just give yourself some time. You might gently tap out the knees just until eventually your muscles feel more comfortable, and maybe you'll find more of your calves reaching the floor. And then you can gently point the toes and flex the feet. If you're in the chair, we're just lengthening through the legs. We don't have to have that deep 90-degree angles. We just want to get to a somewhat of a modified supported staff. So you can flex your feet. You can also point your feet, but we'll relax them in this somewhat flexed position. And make sure you're not too far out. You want your feet somewhat right about where your hips are. So whether you're in the chair or on the mat, feel nice and tall with that inhale. Feel it all the way to the crown of the head, lengthening, engaging the core. We are slightly engaged at the core as we hinge at the hips, walking the hands forward. We're not going to curve at the shoulders or the upper back. We're hinging at the hips until we stop hinging. And we can walk our hands down to help guide us. So if we're at that chair position, and you're finding yourself way down there, well, then you can maybe make your way down to the mat at some point. But we're just holding it there. Wherever the torso stops at the edge, then go ahead and relax and soften the upper shoulders and breathe here. See if you can just stabilize and just keep this general form. Breathing 3 breath cycles here. Deep, slow, ocean-like breaths. Inhaling, pause before you exhale. And after your last breath cycle, we're going to slightly engage the core. Inhale, feeling energy from the tailbone up to the head. We lengthen through the torso and start to walk the torso back up. You can use your hands, you can use your abdominal muscles to simply come on back up. And then I'm going to come down to the floor. Then we can move into bringing more of a butterfly into our position. So from the chair, all you would need to do is start to bring the soles of the feet towards one another and then bending the knees closer, bringing the heels closer towards the groin as you're on the chair. If you're on the mat, we're sitting upright. We're just trying to bring the knees up, bending and externally rotating as the heels get closer. And if we're just right here, that's where we are. And maybe a block might help us to feel a little more supported as we're making our way into our butterfly. And eventually, your butterfly might have more of a diamond shape, or it might have more of a shape of a butterfly with the heels closer towards the groin, with the knees closer down to the floor. But it may take a little while in your practice. So give yourself some time. Hopefully, if you're down on the mat in your seated butterfly, we're sitting upright and trying to get that nice long torso straight from your butterfly. And once you've found that edge, go ahead and breathe 5 breath cycles from there. You can have a hold of your ankles. You could rest the shoulders. You can gently lower the head. See if being in a little more relaxed state helps you to release through your hips, maybe through the knees, maybe through the ankles. At the very least, getting a nice stretch along the shins. And with each successive breath cycle, especially after the exhales, you have just a brief moment, a little bit of space. And you might find that the butterfly opens up just a little more. All right. So what we can do now is, if you're on the chair, we're just going to internally rotate our thighs. Help your legs with your hands if you need to bring the soles of the feet back onto the floor. And you can go ahead and bring the heels out once more. If you're down on the mat, we'll do the same. We're just bringing ourselves back up to center, bringing hopefully more of the torso in this 90-degree position to the legs and the mat. And sitting upright in the chair, go ahead and bring your legs into a 90-degree angle at the knees. And we're just going to bring one of our feet, our left for the mat right now or on the chair. Start with your left foot, and you're just bringing that a little closer along the right leg. So the sole of the left foot should be coming up, and you're about a half butterfly position here, just bringing the knee to hopefully relax, and using one at this point. And keeping an upright seated position with the torso. And then we'll go ahead and inhale. Help the knee back up. And we'll go ahead and lengthen through that leg and tap that out if you're down on the mat. If you're on the chair, go ahead and just come back up to that 90-degree seated position with your knees bent. And now we're going to move to the other position, to the other leg. Let's go ahead and inhale, bring that right foot closer along the left leg, and we're just going to internally rotate it as it gets higher up on that leg until it stops. So we've got a half butterfly, and we're trying to maintain contact of an upright torso best that we can. It might be tighter on one side than the other. Once more, you can use a block to help support that leg. And as you're breathing here, give yourself 5 more breath cycles. See, once you've reached that edge, if you can just relax on that right hip, right knee, right ankle. See if your very last breath there leaves you with some space to release. After that last exhale, we're going to help the inward rotation of that hip as we lower the leg, lengthening once more into that staff position if you're on the mat, or just straight on the 90-degree bent knee position of the chair. And what we can do here is just tap out your body at this point. Do what feels good to kind of release from there. You might be leaning back at the mat or even in the chair and just bending the knees and just giving yourself a gentle roll from side to side on the sacrum, on the glutes, on the hips. You might tap out the knees. And let's see how we are doing on time. Okay. And so we have one more now. Now, in this one, we're going for our figure 4. So when you're on the chair now and you've had a little bit of an opening, what we're going to do is look for that figure 4 position. Now, on the mat, you're just sitting in that staff position and eventually bringing your one knee over, like as if you were in this chair. If you're down on the floor, you can just bring the right foot over the left shin if you're on the floor in that mat, in that staff position. But if you're in the chair, you want to keep a bend to that knee, and we're just bringing, hopefully, eventually this right ankle over the left knee. And if that is not available to you, you can keep the leg out, even if you're in the chair, and see if that helps. Start with the shin, see if you can bring it up a little higher. Eventually, we're looking for a figure 4 here. And in the chair, for me, it's easier as far as like the hips and the knees getting into that position. So you can work here and get a good stretch around the knee, around the lower limbs. If you're on the mat, you have this nice position here. Where eventually you're just lifting up the torso and letting the right knee drop towards the mat. And eventually that will happen, but you just might be intending it for now. And keeping upright, bringing ourselves to a 90-degree angle at the hips as it becomes available. We've been there for a few breaths, so as we lift off, make sure we're avoiding any knees. Just depends on how high up the leg you went. We're internally rotating as we lengthen that leg back down. And once more, you can do what feels good to tap out that right leg, and we'll move over to the left side. So sitting up in the chair, We're just starting to move the left foot over towards the right shin. Keep your right leg long if you need to, if you're on the chair. But eventually, we're looking for a figure 4 in a seated position. And that might look eventually like your right knee supporting your left ankle this time. And eventually, your left knee hopefully dropping more towards the floor, opening up as you lift up through the torso. Getting that deep external rotation, seeing a figure 4 in your legs on the mat, or still that figure 4 base from the chair. And breathing. We're here for, once you reach that edge, it takes about 3 to 5 breaths to reach the edge, but once you get there, give yourself 5 good deep breath cycles. And many times as we're moving through the pose, sometimes you may change in that transition. And so you might just go back and try to realign what you kind of lost in the transition. Or you're just finding that deep connection to how the body is feeling there. Allowing release in the space. All right, so after your last breath, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lift up the left ankle, avoiding any knee area on the right side, and we're internally rotating as we lengthen. Moving slowly. When we're in these longer holds at the end of class, it's a cooling down process that I kind of compare to braces over pulling your teeth. You want slow, steady pressure to kind of facilitate that openness. And then for a little bit after, you're kind of vulnerable, a little fragile, so be careful moving in and out. Now we're going to move down to our back into a base bridge position. And some of us might be best to just come on down to one side, fetal position, and roll on to the back. This is a good time to get your, your blanket. And you can always stay in the chair. You just sit comfortably at the sits bones and just let the torso stack right on top of the pelvis so you can relax. You might have, if you're on the floor though, something underneath the tailbone, somewhere in that small of that back. And sometimes that helps if you find that pressure right there at the lower back. You might just have bent knees and letting them knock inward. If you have a big bolster at home, bunch of pillows right under your knees, that sometimes helps too. Just depends. I personally just like a nice full long Shavasana. And there's that brief moment where there's a lot of space right here, and it just takes a little bit of time to kind of relax and let everything kind of melt, sink into the mat. And again, if you have neck issues, you might need a rolled up, folded blanket for those spaces that can use a little support. Once you get comfortable though, in Shavasana, the feet should be apart. The legs can be towards the corners or they can be alongside each other. Arms are out to the side of your hips, nice and long and relaxed, the palms facing up. And if you have a blanket to keep you warm, feel free to cover yourself. But as you're laying on your back, relaxing, let the eyes be soft. You can also close your eyes if you'd like. Release the tongue from the roof of the mouth if it's there. Just let the belly be soft. As you sink into your Shavasana, if things come up to mind, it's okay. Just note it and let it pass. Return to your breath. And just allow the body to respond to today's practice. We'll awaken when you hear the bells. bringing the mind back to the body. Take note of sounds outside the room, sounds within the room, and finally back to the breath. Notice how the air enters the body, how it moves the body, and finally how it leaves the body. Making any movements such as wiggling the fingers, toes, rocking body parts. Do what feels good to kind of reconnect to the body vessel once more. We'll meet in an upright seated position of your choice. You can be in a crisscross applesauce position. You can be stacked up on blocks. You can sit in a chair. Be nice and comfortable. I'm sitting in a hero pose, and that just means I've folded my legs underneath my sits bones and put them right on my heels, my internal rotation of my thighs, and a slight engagement of the glutes helps to keep my base nice and sturdy as I'm lifting up through the what I would call like the core. So what we're going to do today is our pranayama breath exercise. And you can sit in the crisscross applesauce. You can sit in the hero pose here. You can even sit in staff. But what you'll be doing is making sure that in your supported upright position here, we're closing our lips slightly so that you have just a little bit of space between the lips to shoot out some air on a strong exhale push, like a shh, shh, shh. And the focus is not so much on the inhale. That'll happen automatically. It's more on getting the core to kind of bellow out, shh, shh, engaging the core to bellow out that exhale. So as you engage the core and push through the abdomen, through the belly, you should feel good engagement of everything around the perineal area, your pelvic floor, whatever it takes to stop that urination flow. Having that nice and engaged as you're pushing out will really help to engage all those core muscles in our breath of fire here. So sitting up nice and tall, we'll go ahead and inhale deeply. And then pursing the lips, we're going to press out 20 breaths. And we'll start, don't worry if you don't do them all at the same time. We're going to have a second set to do this. So we'll go ahead and inhale once more. And then exhale through the pursed lips. And the last one is a long, slow exhale out. Hold the breath, engaged core, lifted perineum. It's about 3-4 seconds here. And then release the breath. Let the natural breath come back to play. And we'll do one more set. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, that very last breath, we're just going to do a slow exhale. Just like that. Just get out all the air. And once you're emptied at the belly and your core is really engaged, we lift up our perineum, we lift up that pelvic floor, and we hold that breath for about 3 to 5 seconds. If you have to breathe sooner, that's fine. So we'll do one more set, and hopefully my hands will work out this time. So breathing nice and tall, upright, inhale. Fully exhaled, hold the breath, lift up the perineum, and then release. Release the hold at the core. You may even find yourself lowering down a little bit in your seated position. And just let the breath return to a natural state. And before we leave this, we're doing one more thing. We're going to keep our hands here. If you can touch the fingers to the traps, to the tops of the shoulders, go ahead and hook them down. And we're just going to let those elbows drop on down until you're comfortable, if that's okay. If that feels a little tight in your shoulder, you might want to switch your hands. You can redo that again if you like. But we're just holding that, feeling like we're lifting up from the base of the neck and giving our head just a little bit of a bobble here. Breathe in deeply. And then we'll take our right hand on the back of the neck, so your fingers kind of hook on the left side of your neck, and just gently rub, drag it across the base of your skull, the back of your neck. We're going to use those fingertips to kind of find the groove under your jawline, and we're going to do that flicking action in our scaling stimulation exercise. We'll do the left hand on the back of the neck once more, keeping the face centered. We'll just gently drag the fingertips across the back of the neck, the base of the skull. Let the fingers find the groove under the jawline and flick the fingers off to the right. And give yourselves one more shoulder roll. Bringing hands to heart center. Thank you so much for sharing our class today. Namaste.